Hi, everyone. So for those of you that don't know me, my name is Brianna. I've been here a member for, wow, I'm a junior. Okay, hi. All right, but for those that don't know me, I'm a college student here at UMM. I started attending church here my freshman year, and I haven't left since. But first off, I was here a couple of months ago, here talking about the Arizona mission trip. Came here, thankful and requesting some support from you guys, and you guys truly answered. And so when Pastor Lauren came here and asked me a couple weeks ago, do you want to get up and talk about Arizona for like a 5-minute presentation? I was like, sure, why not? And here I am giving a 20-minute talk, so we could keep it short. But anyways, before I dive in talking about Arizona, I thought we would also talk about the passage that we read here, of course. So, to begin with, I am not a fisherman. I do not enjoy fishing. That being said, my parents love fishing. And so I can kind of relate to the disciples here in a sense when they're fishing. And, my little sister and I, we got dragged out onto the boat and we had to cast our reels in very sloppily, of course, half the time getting it into trees or something. But when we got it in the water, we'd wait and okay, reel it in, nothing there. Okay, let's try again and again. And again, and that's really what these disciples are going through. They spend an entire night on the boat just waiting, casting the net in, getting it back, nothing's there, casting it in. And then they see Jesus on the other side, and he's like, hey, why don't you try the other one? But a lot of these fishermen the disciples themselves are in their natural element. A lot of them were originally fishermen and then got called away from Jesus, and then they returned. And they're in this time of waiting for action, waiting for Jesus to go through, and, we'll get to that part later. But that being said, when they do have Jesus and they get all of these fish and there's this plenitude and there's this time of great harvest and they're able to sit down and eat with Jesus, it's truly a Eucharistic event. This is the time before Jesus goes on to the cross. This is considered sometimes the last breakfast. This is when Jesus is really instilling within his disciples the important tenets of his doctrine and what to do when he's gone. He's really preparing them and preparing the church for how they must act out when he's no longer with them. So in this sense, it's truly not just a recommission from Jesus Christ, but a recommission from the Lord, and reminding the disciples, but also us, who they are and what they were originally called to be. Just followers of Christ, followers of God, and to love in his name. So, in following the call that Jesus puts out for us, often it requires you to put your nets back into the sea, even when you are tired and have had no success. We see that with the disciples, but we can also apply it to our lives here. This is the kind of text that allows for a creative discussion of what the church and ministry abroad and here at home might look like if we were to drop our nets into the other side of the pond, and if we were to really follow Jesus. This can be applied to even here in Morris, maybe reaching out to whatever community this congregation isn't touching, but it could also be applied to mission work here. What we did in Arizona. Truly God and Jesus want to reach every single soul and to bless them. So after reading through this the first time, kind of arriving at this realization, arriving at this call, even so, I couldn't help but feel like a twinge of confusion. I was like, okay, that's great. I hear the call. But so many other humans have heard the call. So many other humans have acted in honestly ungodly ways while proclaiming that they're following Jesus. Especially within mission work, unfortunately, there are examples where mission people or mission individuals throughout history have come to a community, said that they're preaching God's word, but maybe not acting it out, or maybe not truly embracing the community for how they are. With that being read, I was like, okay, that can't be the end. That can't be the answer or the message that God is truly showing us. So after consulting, I read a couple different sources talking about this passage. I read through it again. I think I may have found a little bit of the answer. So one thing to note here is the significance, the conversation between Jesus and between Peter, right there at the end. So you see Jesus ask Peter 3 times, "Do you love me?" Now, love itself, at least here in English, the English language, we only have one word for that. Sometimes you can say the word like in 3rd grade, do you like that person? Ooh. But other than that, it's very kind of superficial, and the actual word, we only have one word for love. Now, within the Greek translation, though, of this passage, which it was originally written in, there's actually 3 words for love. There's eros, which is a lesser form of love. It's more self-centered, selfish. It's a form of love that doesn't truly care about the well-being of its recipient. Then there's also philos, which is maybe the middle tier, and it's the love between friends. It's deeply meaningful, and it's beautiful, but it's maybe middle. We're not quite there yet. And then agape is the highest form of love. That is the love that comes from God. That is, within the definition, is derived from a divine source. It can be described in Genesis as God loved the world. It can be described within the context of humans loving God and God loving humans. That being said, when we look here between the interactions of Jesus and Peter, Simon Peter, both things, you see, when they had finished eating, Jesus said to Peter, "Simon, son of John, do you, agape, love me more than these?" Agape, love me. Do you love me as you love God? "Yes, Lord," he said. "You know that I, philos, love you. I love you as a friend, as an equal." And then Jesus says, "Feed my lambs." Then again he asks Simon, "Do you, agape, love me?" And he answers, "Yes, Lord, you know that I, philos, love you." He's like, "All right, take care of my sheep." Then the 3rd time, he decides to he changes the context. He says, "Simon, do you, philos, love me?" And there we see Peter can finally say, "Do you love me?" He said, "Lord, you know all things. You know that I, philos, love you." So this is interesting because in the end, Peter doesn't truly admit to agape loving, to loving in the highest form. And this kind of confused me at first, and I really wasn't sure where we were going with this. I even thought of, I don't know about you guys with your kids or anything, but I remember when, being dropped off from my mom at school, so in high school, I was like, my mom, she's a lovely lady. I love her so much. But in high school, you're trying to be cool, trying to act tough. And so she'd be like, "Bye, honey, I love you." And I'd be like, "Okay, yeah, love you too." Maybe more on an eros, kind of love. It's you're not truly acknowledging that. Middle school comes, and I was probably more on a philos, love you. I'd be like, "Okay, bye, Mom. Love you too. Yep, okay, gotta go." But then, though, in elementary school, I think is when we really, we all, as children, experience the agape loving of a parent. Truly loving them, seeing no imperfections, without bounds. When my mom was dropping me off at school saying, "Bye, I love you," I would hug her, I would squeeze her so tight, not wanting to let go, not wanting to leave her, and just embracing, the love that we share between each other. Now, with Jesus, he realized, just simply, talking to the high schooler me, I envisioned Simon Peter's kind of like the high school version of not really whatever was going through his mind. Simon is a perfect example of us as humans, as imperfect beings, and always not truly grasping the depth of what Jesus is saying. So when Peter and Jesus are talking, Jesus kind of has to modify and kind of has to, address Simon as he would understand and as he would take in Jesus' love. So elsewhere within passages of John and even within the Bible, agape and philos can sometimes be used synonymously, interchangeable, sometimes have stark purpose. But more than anything within this passage, we see how it reveals our own misunderstanding sometimes of how God calls us to love and how he loves us. I am not a perfect human being, obviously. I will admit that at times I can be angry at God. I don't know if I always agape love him. I mean, I definitely don't. But at the same time, that only makes the significance of God's love for us even greater. The fact that no matter how many times I might internally reject him or, be just not truly follow his word, he continues to reach out and embrace us. He sent Jesus, and Jesus, no matter what, continues to search out, going after the one of the 99 and looking for every single person, no matter how much anger, how much pain they may have in their past. So when, again, kind of coming at this at a different angle, when we look at this, it feels kind of like high standards, like there's pressure that we are called to agape, love God and love Jesus. We just have to remember that he accepts all, and despite this tall order, he continues to be bringing us closer to him, continues to be challenging me in my notion of what God is, of what this agape love is, especially these last couple months. Even going down to Arizona, I was kind of one of the people that helped lead this trip and helped kind of with the logistics. And I'll be honest, I definitely kind of got consumed by that. There were 30-some people that we had to take care of going down hundreds of miles and going to this reservation on White Mountain Apache Reservation. And, there felt like there was so much pressure. And oftentimes I let that pressure overwhelm me. And I was like, okay, I'm showing God that I love him through my labor, through what I'm doing. I'll be going through the motions, though. And often I was praising and loving God on more of a philos level. But God wasn't going to let that stand. No matter what, no matter throughout the trip, he continued to tap me on the shoulder and remind me of his presence and his love. The first time that those stirrings kind of started to happen, we were actually invited to visit the high school. So on the reservation, they have like an elementary school, middle school, high school. And because we had several native students from UMM that came down on the trip, we had the opportunity to go visit the high school and talk to the graduating seniors and juniors about just the opportunity of Morris, the fact that they could come tuition free and allowing them, to see an opportunity for them. I just kind of helped because I had talked to the principal and I was there mainly just to click the PowerPoint that we'd created. So they did they did all of the talking. But at the very end, after we'd gone through what the experience of a Native student is on the campus, what, the logistics of the tuition waiver, the logistics of admission, there was a time where we just kind of asked for questions. They're kind of weren't a ton, so we ended up actually going into the groups of students that were seated and just kind of talking and sharing. And I knew that this really wasn't a time for me to be sharing my experience because I couldn't speak to what these students, growing up on the reservation, that wasn't my place. But at the same time, I was able to step back and able to see the impact that was occurring within these students, being able to see someone that was familiar and similar to them reaching for higher education, and kind of seeing, I felt God there as he was opening the hearts of the students there. After that, we went back to the home church and kind of got on with business. And we then had our vacation Bible school that we put on for the most of the days. I feel like, I don't know, this is kind of a challenging part for me because I want to represent the reservation as it truly is. I can't come here and say, we saved it all and it's great. That's not, but there's true pain on the reservation, but there's also true beauty. There's pain okay, so an example. For instance, one of our students, we do several construction projects around, on homes, on the church, and we were, one of our students, she was hammering something in, and accidentally the hammer hit her eye, and she had a black eye for the rest of the trip. And so when we were doing Vacation Bible School, and she was playing with the kids and interacting with them, at one point there was a joke made, oh, what happened to your eye? Oh, did your boyfriend beat you up or something? And it was said in a joking manner because that's a part of their reality. It's normalized. There was also several instances where we had to deal with some darker parts of these children's lives as we were embracing them and bringing them into the VBS programming. We're interacting, we're getting to know these kids and honestly, truly falling in love. And at that same time, you're interacting with them and learning about their whole lives. And even within school, a thing, I don't know if you guys have heard of Momo. It's a thing that's been going around. I'm sure if you guys have younger kids that but it's within elementary schools. It's a big thing within students because, on YouTube clips, it'll be this cute little Peppa the Pig video, and then a creature of sorts will pop up, and I'm sorry, guys. It challenges the kids to hurt themselves, and something in kids latches onto that, especially in the reservation. We found as they experience pain and hurt, that darkness draws them in. And, sometimes it'll be in a joking manner and sometimes it will be in a serious manner. The rate of young males committing suicide on the reservation is higher exponentially throughout any other demographic. The rate of children, the rate of a middle schooler committing suicide just months before we came, that's the kind of pain that they have to endure and see and experience. And unfortunately, it's not a rare occurrence. So that was something that our group, the students of UMM really struggled to take in and to see and witness, while also not just dismissing it, but truly understanding why it's there, why none of this is their choice. It's part of a historical trauma, a historical occurrence that has put people in these situations. And just as much as there is that pain, there's also so much beauty in the community that can be found there. There's so many of our college students really identified, and they truly became attached to the students, specifically Sydney, one of our college students, so cute. She was able to kind of throughout the several days that we had VBS, there's this little girl, Danielle, and she really was kind of just following Sydney around and working and kind of mirroring her and loving her, and they were playing throughout the week. And then towards the very end, Danielle made a little picture for Sydney and gave it to her. And even though it was just something little, the fact that they had been able to grow that relationship was so big. And even just between the, it wasn't just between the college students and the kids, but also that we witnessed within the community itself, between several of our, so we would go out and do construction projects, and one of the construction projects we did was for this older gentleman named Mike, and, we mainly interacted with Mike, but then we also saw him, bring in his wife and show him the beautiful, we were painting his house, coming and showing his wife, all of the different things that we were doing and the joy that they received, but also the love that was between them. The love that they shared for each other and that they shared for their community, speaking to Mike, hearing about all the good things that are happening within the community. The fact that there has been an increase in high school retention, meaning that less kids are dropping out. The fact that, there is positive growth within the community, the growth that I truly believe God wants, whether God's name is mentioned there. He is truly working great things within the reservation. So that was a huge part of where I felt that agape love that God calls us to. I also felt it as we traveled up to Lonely Mountain, which I wish we had a picture in there, but if you see the guys sitting randomly on the rock and overlooking, they're actually on top of Lonely Mountain overlooking the valley that the reservation is placed on. It's a truly beautiful place. And I think the greatest moment that I had with God was up there, sitting with 30 of us students and just feeling the love, feeling united in Christ, as we had truly become a vessel of God to share his love, to share, as much as we came down there to work and to to do construction and to work with the kids, it wasn't our individual actions that spoke volumes, but more so what God was doing through us. And how, in the end, I believe that it doesn't really matter as much as one individual can impact so many, I think that we were just one in a long line of years of mission work to sustainably build up that community and to, raise up the community rather than us speaking or working for them. So we didn't fix everything. I'm not here to say that. There's, I don't think that it's obviously not a simple fix. But at the same time, this passage in John really spoke to me as we see this kind of love that calls one into action. It's not a passive love. It's a love that takes courage, that takes risks, that isn't wavering despite, regardless obstacles that we come across. It's following God in what we're called to do. And as Christ speaks to Peter, he's calling him to follow me. And I think that speaks volumes today. Not all of you guys are able to, you have families, you have other occupations to tie you down here in Morris, but I don't think that limits us at all. I don't think that, I think that it's still possible to find that agape love here. And there's a video. No. That's okay. Well, this is Tiger. He is one of our mascots there, but everyone has their own path. I can speak for everyone. But one thing is for sure, that we're all called to love. Here's some love.
Let's give her another hand. That was amazing. Thank you.